All right. Hey, welcome back to Kingdom Refresh. We are back with another episode of Kingdom Refresh.
What's it called again?
Kingdom Refresh.
It's like when the podcasters read the ads and they are contractually obligated to say the name a certain amount of times.
Yeah. I think part of me saying it that many times is so I will remember it. Especially if we get into another Kingdom series.
Right, yeah. That's Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
If you would like to have athletic greens, go to athleticgreens.com, because at athleticgreens.com you can,
One of my favorite things I used to watch on YouTube doesn't exist anymore, called SourceFed. They created a fake ad for this company called Strinsoms. And so they would just be like, Strinsoms new deodorant, and just ad lib an ad. And I always thought it was funny. So maybe we should create a
fake.
This episode is sponsored by
something. I don't know. I'm creatively bankrupt.
Not an improv company.
Yes.
You might be a little burnt out right now.
A little tired. It's okay.
So we had a sermon called Respect the Drip.
It's for all you kids out there.
It reminds me of...
It's going to age super well.
Yeah. It reminds me of... I think it was TikTok a while back. It was like, respect the drip, Karen. Do you remember, remember that audio?
That's what it's from. Yeah.
And so it was and then there was people in Boba Fett uniforms and things like that. Just it was always funny.
Well, I was thinking about all the titles to the messages, like deep fake, respect the drip. I'm like, yeah, I think these are not going to age well. When you go back to look at them, you're like, what is deep fake? I'm like,
trying to be relevant.
Yeah, 20 years from now, what happened 20 years ago? It'd be like, I don't know what it would be like saying, where's the beef? Title your message, where's the beef?
Yeah, that's true.
Or by Menon. That's a little Seinfeld reference for you boomers out there.
All right. So really, we're talking about favoritism, that kind of thing. And so what are some ways that favoritism might subtly show up in our church gatherings, and how can we guard against it?
Subtly. Yeah, that's the one. One thing I don't want to draw too much on my proclivity, and my instinct is to go just draw on an experience I've had. But after a while, it can maybe make where I came from look bad, which is not my intention at all, because I love where I came from. Every place that I've ministered, I absolutely love the leadership and everybody. But you spot things. So don't take this as wow, he really didn't like where he worked before, because it's not true. But I noticed throughout different churches, especially the bigger churches, there was... Well, some churches have a partiality toward people with money. I mean, that's probably a normal thing. So-and-so is a big giver, so they get to go on the trips with the pastor, or they get to hang out at the pastor's house, and they get to do that and the other. But I'm just a lowly peasant, So you see that happen. But something that's even more subtle than that is just the way you present and the way you look. I've seen in churches where the women's ministry platform, like the stage, the forward-facing faces, all had to be blonde with giant hats and flowy cardigans. It's like it's the meme about the pumpkin spice latte girl. It's basically if you look like pumpkin spice amorphized. Is that a word? Amorphized? Huh?
It is now.
Anyway.
Anamorphs.
Anamorphized? I don't know. If you look like pumpkin spice, became human, you had a spot on the women's ministry board, and sometimes it's just our own, projection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we generally will like people that look like us or act like us or smell like us. So it's just human nature, but we have to fight that in the church. You don't want, if you see something looking exactly the same, with no way to break in, it's probably a level of favoritism or partiality there, even if it's not intended. It's something that I've noticed.
I think about the, like the old Western movies when somebody walks into the saloon and everything stops and everyone goes,
Mm-hmm.
who is this new person that's invading our territory? Like, why are they at our church? Like, kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of behavior we don't
feel it every
want
week
to show.
I feel it.
Yeah, well,
I walk in anywhere. What's up with this guy?
He must not be from here.
He's not from here.
Yeah,
his hat's the wrong way.
Yeah, but I think it's just intentionally not allowing our biases and our prejudice and things like that to be a part of the church, because the church is supposed to be a place where everyone is welcome, no matter what you look like. I'm gonna do it again. What you look like, what you sound like. But this idea that if, like, you are welcome through our doors, no matter what, like, and I hope that the congregation would also believe that, and not allow you to see it on their face when somebody walks in that looks a little weird or
mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're very much relaxed here. You don't have to wear a suit, and in fact, probably if you do,
you might stand
you're
out.
going to feel actually more stand out than anyone else. But the idea is that if you want to come up in your ripped up dirty jeans and you just got off work, or you're covered in soot or whatever, mm-hmm. that's okay. We don't want to have a place where people are seen as lesser because and that's the reason why it's easy to get that way with giving, where it's like, well, they're more affluent, so I'm going to be nicer to them because that means they'll give more, and that's not the idea at all. We don't want, and in fact you guard yourself from mm-hmm. seeing what people give, because you
mm-hmm.
you see the number, but you don't see who gave or anything like that.
You see the bottom line,
because the idea is, like, I don't want to show favoritism towards somebody because I know that they give more. And we shouldn't do that.
I don't ever want to hear about it. It's funny because somebody will be like, hey, I got my everyone's like, hey, I got my tithe check. I'm like, okay, walk over there and put it in somebody and put it in that box over there. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it. It keeps you in a, I don't know, let's say pure place, but it keeps you in a unbiased. Mm-hmm. It's like ignorance is bliss, a little bit,
Yeah. James 2:5 says that God has chosen the poor to be rich in faith. How does this challenge our cultural perceptions of wealth and success?
Yeah, it's like, that's constantly what Jesus is doing, is challenging you to turn your world upside down. In fact, it says that in Acts, that they turned the world upside down. They lived an upside down life. People didn't understand it. Because the world values bottom line and net worth and all this kind of stuff, but beyond that, there's kingdom value.
Yeah.
And, well, number one, there's the value of your soul, which is displayed in the cross. And then there's, each one is given a gift to bless the body of Christ. So there's value that you bring to the table, not mm-hmm. because of some talent that you developed, but because the Holy Spirit is giving you a role to play. It's nice to, I don't know who the quote is by, but it's a really great quote, and I really think about it often as there's no greater gift to a man than to know where he stands in a room. And so many people will come to church and feel like, I belong in the back of the room. You know, that might not be the case. You might be called to be front and center. You might be called to greet. You might be called to, you fill in the blank, you know, but you have a place to stand in the room. The church has no front line. The church has no front of the line. It only has a front line. You don't stand in line, you hold the line, and everybody's there together to do it. The preacher's not at the front, and then the new guy walking in the door is covered in soot. He's not in the back. We're all doing this together. There's different calls, and there's more scrutiny for certain calls, but certainly not more favoritism or partiality to people doing certain things.
Yeah.
There's that green room culture in church. It's not really here because it's not really a green room here, but there's a green room culture where it's, if you're on stage or you're, you know, performing some kind of public act at a church service, we have a room for you with some nice LaCroix and Perrier and breakfast burritos
and only blue M&Ms.
And yeah, exactly. yeah. And all this kind of stuff. Was it Leonard Skinner that did that? Green M&Ms? I don't remember.
Yeah, one of them.
And so you like wall yourself off. A friend of mine, he's been doing worship music. He's like 70 something years old now. Just great dude. He used to leave the green room and goes, "Yeah, all right, everybody, I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna go mingle with the unwashed masses." Basically to say, we're not better than these folks. Let's get out of here and be a part of the church. And that really ministered to me. I'm like, you know what? And again, it's not like you're trying to do that. It's not like you're like, I deserve to be in this walled off area and hang out over here. It's just culture that's built.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, a lot of times that culture is like, I don't necessarily need to hear the message, you know, like,
oh gosh, that's
it's
so
like
prevalent.
How much, like, you know, like, well, we're leading worship, so like we're just going to sit back here and talk instead of, you know, hearing the word that has been prepared that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be because of hurt too, because you see the other side of who's speaking.
I'm not listening to this guy.
You know, yeah, because I don't respect him as a pastor or whatever.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like, my kids are out there listening to me preach. My wife's sitting there. You know, a lot of my family's watching either online or in the room. And I'm like, man, they know everything. So there's almost like an extra standard of, and that, you know, it says in James, and in fact, we're going to talk about it in 2 weeks. You know, the one who preaches basically is going to be judged more harshly. Mm-hmm. And you will be. It's just the way it is, you know. Like, if I were to stand up and be like, "Yeah, you guys, I never yell when I'm at home, and you shouldn't either," my daughter would be like, "Yeah, right. What a liar!" You know what I mean?
15 minutes ago,
on the way here, you know. Yeah. Or so there's a level of there's a balance too. Mm-hmm. I know we're not talking about preaching, but like there's a balance too when you're in that position of being real and and of being real and making allowances for your faults. You know, sometimes you'd be like, yeah, you guys, I was driving on the freeway and I was like cussing up a storm at this guy who drove by me. Isn't that great? Aren't I so real? It's like, that doesn't sound good. Yeah. You probably shouldn't do that. And so if the real you is not the holy you got to do the work behind the scenes. So when you show up at church, you're not putting on an act. You're being, you know, your honest you is your holy you. Yeah. That's a hard one.
How do you think the emphasis on outward appearance and status affects relationships within the church? What steps can we take to ensure we value people as Christ does?
I guess it's the same as anywhere else you go, huh?
Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if we struggle as much with the outward appearance aspect, but I think when you go into the ideas of cliques within the church, where, and it's something that happens naturally, right? You cling to the people that you have things in common with. You don't normally see somebody that's retired talking to a young person with a young family, just because they're in different stages of life.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to see more of that happening, but majority of the time it's because there's been relationships built that you see that. And so, we don't necessarily have the division of like appearance or status, but it does become a cliquey environment just naturally because you're going to whatever. And so the idea is that they're not a bad thing, but if you continue to allow yourself to outcast people because they're not like you, that's when it becomes a problem. When you decide to, do something and you don't invite certain people because of who they are, like things like that, that's where it becomes more of an issue.
I guess it'd be like where you live or where you grew up or something. Yeah, it is refreshing. I will say it is refreshing to not like walk into the church and people are immediately like sizing your outfit up or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not that, because people look nice, and I'm not saying people don't look nice, but it's not like the focal point. Man, we're like in California, it's like your Sunday's best is a weird thing. Like
walking H&M.
Or like just like Gucci out. Yeah, Balenciaga, man. It's like, especially in Orange County, it is funny to me because I'm like, I used to always like just like ruin people's days because there were the folks out there that really were into fashion, but they weren't into fashion, they were into brands, right? They weren't into looking a certain way. They were into saying, yes, a lot of Supreme t-shirts. Yeah. This is $90 to $120 t-shirt,
It's a $100 t-shirt because it says Supreme on it.
And it's just a red box that says Supreme.
Didn't they sell a brick at one point?
Or the Fear of God was another one, like Essentials was another brand, and it's just like whatever. But so it's funny because like those same people would walk up to me and be like, "Dude, those shoes are cool, man. Like, what brand are those?" I'm like,
Walmart,
H&M, dude. I just bought them. They're like on sale for $20. They're like, and it would ruin their day. They're like, oh. I'm like, you liked them until you knew where they're from, Yeah. And so I have a lot of clothes, dude. I mean, it's not the best, probably for the American economy, but the Instagram's got my number, man. They will just feed me ads from like clothing places because like I got the algorithm all tuned in because I buy stuff, and so like this one place is like Huya or whatever like pops up in my feed, and I'm like, those are cool looking. So I start buying clothes from there. And for sure, they're like Bangladesh or something. They're like not made. They're probably not ethically made. But but they're like super cheap. But they look really good. Like super cheap isn't like inexpensive. Yeah. But they look really good and they're cool. But man, if you tell people, "Oh, dude, where'd you get that sweater? That's really cool. Did you get it at, is that a John Varvatos jacket?" No, it was Timu or whatever. Yeah. People are like, oh.
Yeah. James 2:13 warns that judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. How can we practice mercy in our daily interactions, especially towards those who are marginalized?
It's interesting that he uses the word mercy because so grace is getting what you don't deserve, but mercy is not getting the punishment you do deserve. And in that culture especially, in a way in that culture especially though, it was oppressor and oppressed. So if you're rich, you were an oppressor. You were in charge, man. So just inherently, people who were poor or in the oppressed class the understanding of society was they deserved to be treated poorly. So it was a mercy. It was like showing mercy on the class level to treat them as brothers and sisters. So there was this idea that, you know, you deserved what you, the situation, and it happens in our you know, like, oh, that guy over there just, you know, struggled with alcohol and couldn't keep a job. He deserves the state that he's in. It's like, well, you deserve a lot of stuff too. I deserve a lot of stuff too. And God showed you mercy. So you should show that person mercy. Give them and forego the punishment that they deserve and love them anyway. It might be, oh, they're from that rival. I mean, it's probably a silly way to say it, but they're from that rival town. And they're so mean about our town, you know. But now when they're a part of church, they're a part of the kingdom, not a part of any town. And so treat them well. Show them mercy.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of, you know, the Matthew 25, where, you know, it's I was hungry and you gave me something to eat, and I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink.
The least of these.
Yeah. Like it's about showing compassion, and forgiveness and being patient with people. And, you know, that could look like you're showing support for somebody that's having a tough time. You know, you're giving people grace where they don't necessarily deserve it. Like, I don't know, you know, or, you know, standing up for the people that can't stand up for themselves. Like things like that. It showing mercy doesn't necessarily have to look like we think it looks, you know?
Yeah.
So, in today's political climate, how can we apply James 2:8, which instructs us to love our neighbor as ourselves, to foster unity rather than division?
Yeah. I think I mentioned at the end of the message that Satan's biggest tactic isn't racism, isn't political divide, isn't these things. Those are weapons in his arsenal to complete a greater battle, which is division. He just wants to divide. If you can divide us, we'll be too busy fighting with each other to fight him, you know, to fight for people that are lost. And so politically it's the same thing. You know, it's shocking to me, like, how quickly, especially right now, I'll open my phone and go to YouTube and like hit any political video I see. Like, oh, let's see what that says. Oh, let's see what this guy says about RFK joining Trump. You know, let's see what this guy says about the DNC. Let's see. Oh, what's that? You know, it's almost in our culture today is like the highest form of entertainment. It's like our melding of entertainment and oppression, you know, or not oppression, but like entertainment and rule. It's just the weirdest thing. And I think the allure of walling yourself off onto a team is so palpable. I mean, like, people do it with sports. I remember, like, in 2020, I was like getting all excited about the debates. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna watch the debate. I'm like, is this how people feel when they get ready to watch a sports game?
Sports game.
You could tell I don't do that.
Go score that
goal unit.
Goal stuff.
Hello, fellow sports fans. Yeah. But, you know, it's become a pastime for Americans. It's become a pastime in our culture, just period. And so, but when we carry that into the church realm, like, let's see what he says with an election week. He better preach on election and say what I want him to say, which, by the way, you'll be disappointed sorely. We're going to stick to the book. You know, we're just going to if it comes to it, we'll certainly talk about it. But I see no need to let culture twist you into the area of theology, that.
Well, and it's funny that a lot of times it aligns with what we're going through.
It really does.
Like,
well, especially
we have a plan, but like that doesn't mean that it's not going to hit.
Well, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk about controlling the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, man! Like, using your platform for godly things. That's so apropos in the middle of what we're going through. When we start our Church Defined series a week from, this Wednesday, we're going to land on talking about culture war the week of the election. It's not by design. It's just the way it's happening,
Yeah. I think too, it's you have the walk a mile in somebody else's shoes kind of thing. The principle of a lot of times we listen to respond, not to understand. And
let me stop you right there. No, I was kidding.
Shut up. I was kidding. But the idea that, we are listening, but we already know what we're going to say.
Yeah.
Versus I'm listening to you to comprehend where you're coming from, why you believe what you believe. And I feel like we've lost that a lot in our culture. We've lost this idea of that we can listen to each other and not get in a fight. Like there is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to talk about things, and people shouldn't be able to bring up their different political views, whether that's in the church or in the culture, without being necessarily attacked. But the respect has to come from both sides.
Yeah. I guess the hardest one is when the political fervor crosses with religious conviction. That's when people probably get the most angry. It's like,
if you're a Christian, you should vote this way, or you should do this thing.
Yeah, and the reason is because it'll cross with religious conviction. So like people will vote solely on abortion issues, or solely on whatever else. I mean, like maybe even like drugs, marijuana, I remember that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe 10 years ago, I guess now.
Yeah, legalization of
marijuana, all that kind of stuff. And so there is like culture, politics, and holiness will cross at certain points, But there's a lot of laws still on the books. Like you can go look at some of these weird ones up that nobody's ever annulled, they're just not enforced anymore because they're so ridiculous. Like, I think it's in Arkansas, you can't buy a pickle until you first bounce it on the ground. I think that's a real law.
Yeah, and I think there is one in Carlinville that's like you can't go around the square 100 times.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Like driving or walking?
Driving. So you can go 99 though. I haven't done it yet, but I really want to.
Dang, that'll make you sick. Well, so there's those laws. And everybody goes, oh, that's dumb. We don't pay attention to that law because it doesn't have any bearing on our life, because we all collectively agree that that's dumb. I'm not bouncing a pickle on the ground. I think that could be the same for any issue that we face that is moral. You can't legislate morality, but you could legislate from morality. And if your morality is messed up, you're going to get some bad legislation. But let's say abortion is legal, which it is in a lot of cases. If the church is doing its job to change hearts and make, be salt and light, wouldn't it be better to change hearts and minds to where it's like, oh, it's legal, but no one would ever do it, as opposed to taking the fight only in the political realm. It's like, yeah, that's a worthy thing to do, but it's not the only thing to do, right?
Yeah.
If Christians were adopting more, if we were taking care of widows and orphans, we were walking alongside and helping young ladies who were pregnant with no way out, if we were doing all the things that we need to do, which there are a lot of ministries that do that, we wouldn't have to fight and hang our hat on that one candidate that will fight the fight for us. It's like, no, we fight the morality fight. We fight the holiness fight. Sometimes it crosses with politics. Sometimes it doesn't. But we need to be in a society that legislates from the right morality. And if our legislation looks really messed up morally, that's because our culture is messed up morally. And so we need to be better salt and light, preserve good, illuminate darkness.
Yeah. How can we reconcile the idea that breaking one part of the law makes us guilty of all of it with our understanding of grace through faith in Christ?
Yeah. So the emphasis that he's saying there is basically don't have a hierarchy of sin in your life.
We can't pick and choose what we want to follow.
Because they're like, well, I haven't murdered anybody, I haven't stolen. I treated this person poorly because of their race or because of their social status or socioeconomic status. Same thing, as far as missing the mark is missing the mark.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if I'm axe throwing. Remember when we axe threw? Nobody hit anything. It didn't but if I'm throwing an axe at a target and it goes over here and breaks a windshield, I still miss the mark. Or if I miss it by an inch, I still miss the mark.
Yeah.
That's what sin is. We're supposed to be hitting the mark. You might miss it by a mile. You might miss it and have different consequences to what happens when you miss it. Mm-hmm. You still missed it, Yeah.
Yeah. In what ways might we be tempted to show partiality in our workplace or social circles? How can we reflect Christ's impartial love in those settings?
Go ahead.
I feel like workplace, a lot of times it's you are, okay, if you're looking for a promotion, you're going to be friends with the people that are more influential, the people that can get you that,
Oh, that's the ladder climbing.
Yeah, you're just you find the people that are going to, within your workplace, that are going to be able to get you to a next level. And I mean, that could be subconscious, I guess, too. Not necessarily you're trying to do that, but
I haven't had a real job since I was 16, so I don't really.
Same.
I've either been playing music or doing ministry. I guess ministry is a real job, but
yeah,
it's a hard job. Sitting here talking on this podcast is a real struggle today. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it comes out sometimes it's okay to have preference.
Yeah.
In life, but you can't let your preference take precedent.
Yeah.
It can't be a precedent. It has to be just a preference. I want to put him on blast, so I won't say his name. He's an older gentleman. He came up to me. He actually had a really good thing to say. You mentioned, not showing partiality over the way someone's dressed or whatever. He's like, sometimes I look around and I'll see these people with hats on, these guys with hats on, and my mom would just knock it right off their head if, because that was not acceptable to wear a hat in church. And I'm just making conversation. I said, yeah, I probably wouldn't wear a hat from on a platform or something, but maybe just coming to church and not, whatever. I said, I'll tell you one thing I don't like in church is wearing shorts. And he goes, oh, and I looked down, he's wearing shorts. I was like, oh wait, I mean, for me, I don't like wearing shorts in church. I'm saying you can't wear shorts in church.
I don't even know if you wear shorts.
I don't.
I was going to say, do you even own?
I have some.
For swimming purposes?
Yeah. I don't particularly wear shorts, but so it was just a funny moment because he was talking about hats and then I said shorts and he was wearing shorts. So everybody's got a preference and everybody's breaking someone else's preference.
Yeah.
And so you can't, that's a moving target that's just going to annoy the heck out of you if you dwell on it.
Yeah. And I think because it is really hard to be impartial, right? Because we are going to flock to people that are similar to us. I mean, if you look at social networking, the algorithm shows you what you want to see. They show you things that are similar to your views. You're never usually going to see the other side of things. really ever, because it's learning. I mean, it's the same thing in real life where we kind of decide like, okay, I could be friends with a sports person, but like I don't really care about sports, but this person likes movies. Like, we're going to have a lot in common. We're going to have a lot to talk about. Yeah. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to hang out with somebody that likes sports? No, but there's definitely an interest there. You know, if they invite me over to watch a football game, like, sure, I'll go. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to enjoy it. I mean, I can enjoy sports, but it's not my thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it could be the same exact way if, you know, if I'm like, hey, we're having a board game night, and I invite the person that really likes sports, they're like, I don't really want to play board games, you know, like.
That's great. That happens in marriage, doesn't it? Like, it's like the hardest thing is when like you try to do a couples thing with people, and then like the women really connect, and I've always experienced this where it's like my wife really connects with the other wife.
Sup, man?
And I show up and he's like, not at all like me. Like, yeah. I'm like, so what are your interests?
You want to go talk about mufflers?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you like cars and I like guitars, and there's nothing there. And the hardest is when they try to relate. They try to pull you in, but you're like, oh, so what kind of guitar do you have? A Gibson Caster? What did they say? The totally wrong thing. Yeah. I'm like, we don't need it. We don't have to do this.
Yeah.
What movies you like? Okay. What TV shows do you like? Yeah. You don't like it. I don't know.
What about hot wings? I'm a vegan.
I'm a vegan. Yeah. You know what bugs me? It's just, I'm gonna get my soapbox for a second. Here's what bugs me. I'm getting worked up.
I don't know what's going on.
I'll be like, oh, what shows do you like to watch? And then they go, oh, well, I don't have any time to watch TV. It's like, okay. Yes, you do. You just want to let me know that you have time. You probably just spend it all looking up sports stats.
Doing something else.
Or something. I hate that so much. I don't really have time. It's like, yeah, you do. There's 24 hours in a day, man. Don't sleep.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, just don't sleep.
Yeah, don't say. I wish sometimes. Like if you could not sleep and not be tired, I would do that every day. I could watch so many things.
Heck yeah.
Just binge shows all night. That'd be great.
We're binging Stranger Things right now as we do this podcast. Let's see that part. It's right there, the screen.
Gosh.
Ghostbusters.
I lost my... There we go. What does it mean to clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience? And how can we make this a daily practice? Well, if you don't clothe yourself, you're going to be naked.
Yeah, you definitely got to put some clothes on. And some people do the world a great service when they do that every morning. But I mean, that's you have to learn the fashion. You got to go to the fashion guru. He's right here. It's the Holy Spirit.
The fashion guru.
This is how you get a good drip.
Yeah.
A Christian fit.
Yeah.
On fleek.
Oh gosh.
That's 15 years old.
Yeah. I think I like the language of clothe yourself, because it is a active action. You know, it's something that you have to do, you know. If you leave the house and it's cold and you don't put on a jacket, actively put on a jacket, you're going to be cold, you know. Like it's this idea of like I have to physically, you know, put my shirt on, put my pants on, put my socks on. Like I have to clothe myself in these things every day. And then, I mean, you can think about it like, you know, sometimes you get out of bed and you're late, you know, and you're like, I'm going to throw stuff on real quick, or I'm going to wear what I have on. Like if you slept in your clothes or whatever. But I'm going to say it, there's like a stench there, you know, like you know, it's old. Right. And so it's like renewing those things every day.
Yeah.
Kind of makes them fresh and new.
It says in Romans, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So be transformed. Be the person God has made you to be, but keep renewing your mind with His Word. And that's what you do. Spend time with Him, pray, be in the mirror. It's funny that he talked about, looking into the mirror of the law last week. We talked about that. Yeah. And then now you clothe yourself with righteousness,
Yeah, and I think too, this idea, is also you being intentional throughout your daily life to try to show compassion. The biggest one for me is be real. The biggest one for me is patience. That's my hardest thing, especially when I'm trying to get somewhere quickly, and you always get behind the 93-year-old grandma that drives 15 miles per hour.
Or me, because I'm basically the same thing.
Okay. Well, I don't want to drive behind you then, because I am not that way. But it's that, it's doing things, especially when they're difficult, and showing kindness and showing gentleness, and actively using those things throughout the day, not just clothing yourself, but looking for opportunities that you can actually demonstrate Christ to people.
It's funny you mention that, because I've had moments where I'll be not so much here, but driving to lunch, and these people are stressed out. They're cutting you off, or trying to get around, or trying to get somewhere. And in those moments, I'll get mad, and I'll go, well, hold on. I got nowhere to be. I could take an extra 5 minutes at lunch because nobody's waiting for me. Why do I have to? What is so important in my life that it's warranting me ruining that guy's day by sticking it to him,
Well, and I think that goes along with what we talked about earlier, where, sometimes we're not thinking about the other person's situation, and I say this a lot when I'm teaching, especially younger people, if I'm talking about this topic, this idea that sometimes, we don't know what somebody's going through. They hurt us, but we don't understand where they're at. The person that cut you off was on his way to the ER because he just got a call that his kid was hurt. The person that got mad at you at the store just found out that they lost their job. We don't take the time to, and I think this goes along with the political aspect too. We don't take the time to give ourselves this chance to understand, because it's
maybe his wife drug him to a dinner with a guy that said he doesn't have time to watch TV.
Yeah.
You don't know what his situation
and
is.
Maybe sometimes it is just they suck as a person, because people do. I suck as a person sometimes. But a lot of times I
try to do all my sucking as a person inside my head.
Sometimes it comes out.
Do you ever sitting there talking to somebody and you just imagine what if I just started punching you in the face?
Absolutely.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that a weird morbid thought to have?
Yeah.
Probably not being transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah. But it's that idea of we don't understand what other people are going through, and maybe they are just being a jerk, but maybe there is something going on in their life that they're behind, or they're stressed, or they're whatever. And we have to allow ourselves to be humble, be gentle, be kind, be patient, because we have to exude those characteristics, which are very much what Christ was. So talking about the story of Zacchaeus, how does Jesus' interaction with him demonstrate the importance of looking beyond someone's status to their potential in Christ?
That's hard, because your human nature is, what can you do for me? It's you're always kind of sizing people up in that way, aren't you?
Yeah.
Guys, what do you do for a living? Ooh, is that useful to me? Hey, let me get some. Do you know anybody that does this? Yeah, oh yeah, I got a guy. Everybody's got a guy, right? Oh, I got a guy for that.
Oh, you're a doctor. Can you look at this mole?
There's okay, let me just, if you come to church here, Cross Church, we have doctors, chiropractors, dentists, very professional guys, plumbers, you name it, we got it. Don't see them as a profession.
Yeah.
Let it be Sunday, you know. Set an appointment and pay them. Pay the guy, you know. I always feel bad when I want to, you know, if I ask somebody from church, like, hey, could you help me with this? And then like, oh yeah, I'm like, how much? Oh, don't worry about it. It's like, no, I really want to. I really want to pay you know.
Yeah.
But so often we're not that way. It's always like, see what I can get, you know. And looking past that to like, you're not a plumber, you're not a financial advisor, you're a brother in Christ, and all that stuff is just what you do. But you're gifted with this, with the Holy Spirit gift. You know, you have something beyond what you do to earn money that can be done for the kingdom. And I think that's how, if we start looking at it that way, poor, rich, whatever, you know, talent is no respecter. And I love this, and I've learned this. Talent is no respecter of class. Like, if you ever go to New York and just go to the subway or go to Central Park, you see some of the most talented homeless people. Yeah. And you're just like, why? And I almost like call talent like a superpower. It's like you have a superpower. Everybody's got something. Well, it's the same way with the with your spiritual gifts. It's like, it's no respecter of class. God will just drop something in someone's lap and say, I'm going to use you. David's a great example. We talked about Saul and David. Saul being the tall, dark, and handsome, perfect character for the king. And God's like, I'm going to use the shepherd boy over here. The musician. Talk about worthless. You know, it's like, they thought shepherds were worthless. They were like the lowest rung of society. And on top of that, he plays a little guitar. Like, what's up with that? Yeah. Well, you know? Yet God's just several years later, Saul has slain his thousands. David has slain his tens of thousands. You know, God will use you because, you know, gifting and talent is no respecter of class.
Yeah. Yeah. It's looking past everything that you believe they are and seeing the potential, or the, you know, seeing as Christ does through his eyes. Like, I mean, Zacchaeus was the scum of the earth in that, you know, because not only was he the tax man, but they also would steal from you. You know, they would overinflate things and, you know, pocket like money and things like that, and scheme, you know. And so it was very, you know, it was a very unregulated process. Like,
I always wondered too, like, because we're not told in scripture, but like, I wonder if Zacchaeus was like, I'm going to sell half my stuff and give it to the poor. And then Jesus is like, cool. Crap. See ya. And he leaves. And he's like, I thought I was going to get an invitation to be like a part of your crew if I did that.
Oh, I should have said 25%.
Dang it.
Yeah. You know, or like, I've always wondered, like, was he actually short, or were they like insulting him?
That's what I was wondering. Like, that's what I was wondering too.
Oh, you poor little man. You know,
he's a wee little man, like in not just stature, but like character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. Still not a cool song, man.
Yeah. Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Is that copywritten? Yeah, maybe we should remix that. Zacchaeus was a wee little man.
I don't know why it came out of rap, but
I don't know. Last question. In what practical ways can our church or small groups work to break down barriers of division, whether that's racial, economic, generational, within our community?
I like that it works in the little small group action there. That's we're starting out on Wednesday. Because you got to look past the surface to the story, you know. Man, when you start hearing stories,
Well, I think too, just a slight comment, and I think maybe we've talked about this before, but the story aspect, because that happens in the church too, where it's like, well, you don't really have a story. You're just a Christian kid that, you know, is now an adult. Like, you don't have a story. Your story is not impactful, you know. But a story of dedication is just as powerful as somebody that was a prodigal and came back, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you've stayed with a job for 30 years through all of this stuff, is just as powerful as the person that has, you know, has left a toxic situation and found something better, you know.
Yeah. And then realizing, like, I think it was Dave Chappelle. He did a speech. It's probably a comedy special that I heard it, but probably shouldn't listen to that. But he had a good point. He said you gotta pinpoint whether or not you're in someone else's dream or they're playing a part in your dream. I was like, dang, that's really good. Because he was talking about, you know, very formative times in his life where it's like, oh, that was very clear that person was playing a part in my dream. Then he talks about meeting somebody and he's like at a party or whatever. And then you realize, he goes, uh-oh, I'm playing a part in this guy's dream right now, you know, because they're meeting Dave Chappelle and it's a big moment for them, not a big moment for me. And so it's like, but that's a cool principle, right? Like, start thinking about taking moments and going, am I playing a part in someone's dream? Or is this are they playing a part of mine? Like, a great example would be like someone recently said, like, oh, you know a lot of people. And I said, yeah, I know a lot of people. And they meant people of prominence. And I said, yeah, but the problem is, I'm just playing a part in all their dreams, you know, like, they weren't playing a part in my dream. I was playing a part. And so if you start to see yourself that way, like, I was just a cog in what the Lord wanted to do in that person's life. There's a lot less envy and there's a lot less competition. Like, wow, you know so-and-so? Yeah, I do. I wish I knew so-and-so. No, because you would just be playing a part in their dream, you know?
Well, and
you know, you're right now, me being pastor of this church, this is all part of my dream, you know? Like, I've longed and loved and worked for this, you know? And so there's other people that are going to walk into your group, into your life, that spending time with you on that Wednesday night, Sunday morning, you're playing a part of their dream right now.
Yeah. And I think along that conversation, you know, you know a lot of people, but how many of them were in it because of what you could give them versus, you know, like, how many, you know, obviously we can name drop people like Greg Laurie or Phil Wickham, like people like that. But, you know, how many of those people could you call on and they would say yes? Or is it you can no longer reciprocate, you know, like, you can't give me anything. You're at a small church in Carlinville, you know, like,
exactly.
Like,
yeah, it is interesting how that works.
Yeah, versus like, no, we have a real friendship. Like, we are friends. We love each other. Like, we care about each other. Yeah.
And there's ones from each of those categories. You know? I was fortunate enough to, you know, like we listened to the interview with Ben on Sunday, and, you know, I texted him and asked him if it was okay, because he's like, you know, I can just use his likeness whenever I want, you know. Yeah. And he was more than happy to do that and send us a video and stuff like that. So that's cool. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't gain anything from that. I'm not paying him money, and he's just being a friend. Yeah. But yeah, there's probably others where if I were to be like, hey man, would you come out and do this thing at church for me? No. Leave me on red.
How many people?
You know? Yeah. Probably more people than I would like to say. You know?
Well, and that's, you know, that's the thing, and a lot of times we don't know until we get into those situations. But I feel like as far as like these barriers go, I think it just takes intentionality of us, you know, if we want to break the multi-generational thing, then we need to create opportunities for younger people and older people to, come into a relationship of mentorship, or, if we want to create opportunities for, if we're talking multicultural, then we create these opportunities for, to celebrate things that are multicultural. Like you have to, it takes that intentionality to break those barriers. Because if we just say, oh yeah, we love you, but like, no, we love you and we're going to support you through this,
right?
Or we're going to, we want to be a part of your culture. Yeah. And how can we do that? And do it well and do it right, like I think things like Cinco de Mayo, right? Like there's a difference between let's throw a fiesta party and like, no, let's get like authentic things and really take the time to make this something that's, correct or whatever. Like,
sorry, I'm filtering jokes out of my mind.
That's fine. Jokes are good.
Anyway,
yeah.
Oh, and if you made it this far and you're wondering, wow, Phil Wickham's a jerk. He doesn't, like that's not what he was talking about.
No,
he was just using examples.
Using the two that I could think of right now
because he's really not. Like, he actually came to St. Louis. We were with Michaela and Tosh. And my wife's like, "Oh, Phil's out here right now," and I was like, oh, "I guess he was doing a show." Mm-hmm. And so I was like, "Hey, go to Sushi." Huh?
Him and Brandon Lake.
Yeah. Which I don't know him or anything, but and so like, I shot him a text, and I thought he's not gonna respond. He doesn't care. And then he did, and he heartfelt, just, who dis? I was like, man.
Oh,
no, that's not true.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
But yeah, I mean that, that is a thing, like, because there are people, especially in industries like this, where you only are friends with them for what they can give you. Yeah.
If you want to know who the real ones are, out of the people I met, most of them are, honestly.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Some of them aren't.
Yeah.
But most of them are. A lot of these guys, like, you'd just be surprised at how many good people there are in the church. Yeah. Even if you wouldn't think they would be. Like, and that's another bias that people have. Like, oh, big popular pastor, bad. No.
Bad.
Not bad. Yeah. Just because, it's, they're just, God's put them in that place and God's blessed them. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them.
So, do you have a title for Sunday?
Do I have a title for Sunday? Yes, I do. It's The Walking Dead.
Ooh.
Yes. We're going hard with the cultural references. The things that I like. Yeah. So The Walking Dead, because it is the general center point thesis of the entire book of James, is faith without works is dead. Mm. And so it is possible to have a dead faith. Which would be like, are you just a zombie Christian? Are you just, like, zombies are all instinct and desire and no substance, aren't they? Mm. So zombies just walk around, eat, hordes, burns, the whole thing.
Burns. That's going to be great.
So I don't want to give it away too much, but
okay.
I'm trying to think of something unique. Every time we gather, I want to have something special and unique. Obviously, the Lord's there, so that's special and unique. But like,
we're gonna have zombies.
So yeah, I was thinking maybe like a zombie Nerf tag. You ever done that before?
No. Zombie run.
Yeah,
I think that's a thing. Like zombie walk. It's like like Comic-Cons.
Well, dude, you can. There's this thing, once a year at Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and it was a zombie run.
Oh.
And you go in, and it's like around Halloween time, and you go in and you have I think Nerf guns, and they're like full on costume zombies, dark, built the cityscape, and you go through and you have to shoot zombies.
That sounds fun.
But it was like $200 to go. My wife was gonna take me, but it was too expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't know.
The Walking Dead on Sunday.
Yeah. So we'll see you. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll catch you tomorrow. Services are at 9 a.m. Central Time, so we would love to have you check it out, whether online in person. And we'll catch you next week on the next episode.